Hey there, this is Pastor Micah from Life's Journey United Church of Christ. Let me say what a pleasure it was to rejoin each of you in worship, for Paul and me to do so after returning from our honeymoon and beginning the process of consolidating our homes together after our marriage. You won't be able to see it behind me because the office is a little more organized than some of the rooms. But as I'm sharing this week's Midweek Devotional, there are boxes all over our new home. I'm happy about it because I've married an amazing lady, and we are in the process of combining our two houses into one, which has involved moving our things into the house we are sharing together and sorting through what we will keep and what we will let go of. I know some of you shared with me before I got married that you also know the joy and frustration of this same process when you married or settled down with your spouse or partner, after each of you having homes of your own when you were single. This process of sorting through what to keep or let go of from my life as a single person, well, Paula does the same as we embark on the adventure of marriage, is enabling us to carve out a new life together. And it also seems like a great symbol of the spiritual life. C.S. Lewis describes this journey in a similar way in his book, Mere Christianity. Imagine yourself as a living house. God comes in to rebuild that house. At first, perhaps, you can understand what God is doing. God is getting the drains right and stopping the leaks in the roof and so on. You knew that those jobs needed doing, and so you are not surprised. But presently, God starts knocking the house about in a way that hurts abominably and does not seem to make any sense. What on earth is God up to? The explanation is that God is building quite a different house from the one you thought of, throwing out a new wing here, putting on an extra floor there, running up towers, making courtyards. You thought you were being made into a decent little cottage, but God is building a palace which God intends to come and live in. The scriptures tell us in Romans 12, I appeal to you, therefore, brothers and sisters, on the basis of God's mercy, to present your bodies as a living sacrifice, holy and acceptable to God, which is your reasonable act of worship. Do not be conformed to this age, but be transformed by the renewing of the mind, so that you may discern what is the will of God, what is good and acceptable and perfect. To learn how to walk in Christ's steps, which is what it means to live in Christian life, involves sorting out what to keep and what to let go of. Sometimes what God calls us to let go of feels peaceful to us. In a recent hospice visit, a patient's spouse was telling me how she doesn't let people get by with saying to her, I'm too fat, I'm too ugly, I'm too short, reminding them that God made them and God doesn't make any mistakes. How many of you need that reminder? I know some days I do. The idea they are too much of this or that isn't from God, but it was a very kind of being conformed to the patterns of the world. It's not so subtle messages that unless you and I fit some unrealistic ideal, nobody looks like those photoshopped pictures in the magazine, online or on TV. But the world gives us this not so subtle message that unless we conform to that, we aren't good enough. It's hard to let go of that lie. But that's a part of cleaning up house. But doing so means breathing easier and carrying less on our shoulders. Sometimes, though, as C.S. Lewis suggests, this process is painful, especially when we face into long-held prejudices and assumptions. I still remember when I sat down as a young, fresh-faced assistant pastor at an evangelical church in LA over spaghetti with a member who confessed to me, "Pastor, I'm gay," and asked me what we could do about it. Now, I was full of assumptions I had been taught in that moment by the culture at large and the church I was baptized by as a teenager about what that meant. Assumptions I found out as he shared his own story and as I studied the Bible with an open heart were wrong. It was hard to let go of that prejudice I'd been taught over the years, but liberating. I wouldn't be pastoring here at Life's Journey if I had held on to it. And letting go of that prejudice caused me to lose some friends and even family over the changes it has brought. It can be painful to let go, to change. I've heard similarly challenging stories from people who had to give up addictions, face into an anger problem that is hurting their family, or learn to be more honest and set healthier boundaries for their life. It hurts to change. The changes we are called to participate in as God makes us into the palace we are meant to be are as varied as we are. If they all focused on helping us live into God's vision in Micah 6:8. The Lord has told you, O mortal, what is good. And what does the Lord require of you? But to do justice, and to love kindness, and to walk humbly with your God. Each take time, and each can be painful, yet each helps us live more fully Christ-like lives. My thoughts so far are focused on our personal lives, being less prejudiced, being more kind and giving, having a heart for others, letting go of addiction, and so on. These all matter. But such reorganizing of the house is something not only we should do personally, but as a church, as communities, and as a world. Martin Luther King talked about this by describing all of humanity as a one world house, saying, "We cannot be content to see any hungry, to see any victimized with ill health, when we have the means to help them. In the final analysis, the rich must not ignore the poor, because both rich and poor are tied together. They entered the same mysterious gateway of human birth into the same adventure of mortal life. All are interdependent." He continues, "Every nation is an heir of a vast treasury of ideas and labors to which both the living and the dead of all nations have contributed. Whether we realize it or not, each of us lives eternally in the red. We are everlasting debtors to known and unknown men and women." And then he goes on to picture this by what happens in the morning, getting ready for work. He says, when we rise in the morning, we go into the bathroom where we reach for a sponge which is provided for us by a Pacific Islander. We reach for soap that is created for us by a European. Then at the table, we drink coffee, which is provided for us by a South American, or tea by a Chinese person, or cocoa by a West African. Before we leave for our jobs, we are already beholden to more than half of the world. In a real sense, all of life is interrelated. The agony of the poor impoverishes the rich. The betterment of the poor enriches the rich. We are inevitably our brother's keeper because we are our brother's brother. Whatever affects one directly affects all indirectly. As I sort through just such items that he described in these boxes, where they'll go as we consolidate our homes into one, I am struck by the fact that letting God renovate my life into a palace where the Creator can dwell means also thinking about the way in which life is structured on the street where I live, in the town I call home, and the towns I work, in my state, my nation, and on our planet. It is to ask how I can help also reorganize this world house, making choices that recognize the debt we all share to each other, recognizing the need for all to have more than enough to thrive. I am not yet, and we are not yet there as a church, as a community, as a nation. But As we are mindful each day, we can make our small impact, and we can challenge others to do the same. Well, we've got boxes all around us here at the Hardy Royal House, but we've cleared out and set up an exercise room, a bedroom, an office, and cleared a dining room table. It's something. It's a start. We feel more at home every day. Just so, we won't get there in our lives or our communities all at once. But as we clear space more, little by little, we and God will become more at home. We will become more that palace where God is fitted well. Let's keep at it. And I look forward to seeing you all this Sunday. God bless.